When talking about rookies, it's very important to understand how volatile they are. We touch on it every single year. There are some incredibly talented players coming into the National Hockey League this year, and a lot of guys that I really think could be excellent NHL players in the future. But again, we have to slow ourselves down and understand that rookies typically don't produce at a point per game like Connor Bedard, like Connor McDavid, like Austin Matthews scoring 40 in his rookie year as well. These things typically don't happen, but that doesn't mean that they can't happen. It's just important to be a little bit conservative with them, which is why it's important to keep in mind the three main factors for having a high impact rookie. You need talent, you need opportunity, and you need good personnel around you to be successful. So that being said, guys, here are some of the best rookies going into this year's fantasy hockey season. The guy with by far the most NHL experience on this list and is poised for a big season with the Dallas Stars is Logan Stankoven. Stankoven will not only contend for the Calder this year, but should be a viable option in fantasy hockey, especially in deeper formats. After finishing the year with 14 points in 24 games with 51 shots, 20 hits, and 11 blocks, Stankoven then had a solid playoff showing with the Stars where he had 8 points in 19 games with 36 shots, 24 hits, and 18 blocks. The biggest change that we've seen from the regular season Stankoven and the playoff Stankoven is increase in average time on ice, going from 14:40 in the regular season to over 16 minutes in the postseason. Not only does Pete DeBoer trust this player, especially on the penalty kill, but Stankoven spent almost all of his time in Dallas's top six in the last 15 games of the season, skating alongside guys like Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn consistently on a game-to-game basis, even well into the playoff run, and sometimes even skating on that top line with Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson. The only downside that I could really see to Stankoven is the power play one exposure or lack thereof. And because the Stars are so deep, he might honestly get lost in a middle six rotation that limits his 5-on-5 time. But other than that, Stankoven is an absolute spark plug for this team. He's shown that he can be trusted in all situations to Pete DeBoer. Pete DeBoer loves playing this guy high up in the lineup as well, and I think he's in a very, very good spot this season. He's got by far the most NHL experience and has shown that he can produce at a decent rate at an NHL level. So even though he might not have the ceiling as some of these players are going forward, he's still going to be a really good spot because of the opportunity, the players around him, and the fact that he's shown that he can produce already at an NHL level. I think Lane Hutson is in a really, really good spot as a rookie defenseman this season. 22:43 average time on ice from the 2 games that he played at the end of last season when he was brought in after his stint in the NCAA. Hutson is a very cerebral offensive defenseman, very good puck mover, and has shown time and time again that he's an offensive threat no matter his size and no matter at what level. He led all NCAA defensemen in points last season and was tied for 12th amongst all players in scoring with 49 points in 38 games. If there's one thing that kind of shies me away from Lane, it's the fact that his peripherals are pretty lackluster. Based off what we've seen in his NCAA, his shot volume seems very, very similar to a guy like Luke Hughes, for example. So he's going to be on the lower end in terms of his shot volume, but I do think that there is a really good chance that Montreal will start Hutson on power play 1. Even if that's not the case, he could at least challenge Mike Matheson for that power play 1 spot throughout the year. And if Hutson does land on power play 1 at his ADP 177, he could be a league winner because you're likely seeing similar production to what we got out of Mike Matheson last season. He just won't have those peripheral stats to go along with him, but given his ADP, I think he would be an absolute slam dunk if he ends up on that power play 1. I could see a Luke Hughes like rookie season out of him with similar peripherals like I mentioned earlier. If he holds on that power play 1 spot, expect his power play point projections to double. He could very well be a 50-plus point defenseman right out of the gate if given the opportunity. If there's one rookie I'm looking to target this year, it's Matvei Michkov. He will be a Calder front runner for this upcoming season just based off of talent alone. Michkov is a freakishly skilled dual threat forward that will shock a lot of players with his skill next season. I'm so looking forward to watching him play hockey at an NHL level. The Flyers have gone out of their way in every single facet possible to get this guy into their starting roster and will give him every opportunity next season. Now, I know what you're thinking, Chris. he's a Philadelphia Flyer, John Tortorella still exists. And hopefully this time's different. Okay, guys, just bear with me. I don't think that Torts could possibly bury this guy in the bottom 6 or even the middle 6. I think he's going to be a top 6 player. I say that hoping that that's the case, but Michkov posted 41 points in 48 games last season in the KHL, just 2 points shy of Kaprizov's under 20 points record, making his production very, very safe with what's in front of you right now, with 51 points in 78 games and 175 shots, especially the peripherals with Michkov. In his last 78 games in the KHL over the course of the last 2 seasons, he recorded 28 goals, 33 assists for 61 points, 288 shots, 31 hits, and 46 blocks, while all averaging under 17 minutes time on ice in both seasons and only registering 5 power play goals. I believe in one of the seasons he was actually under 15 minutes as well. The rate that this guy produces at is insane. He is Bedard level talented, and I think the only thing holding back Michkov will be John Tortorella next year, and if he does, Danny Briere is going to pull his hair out. He is going to be bald by Christmas next year if we turn around and see Matvei Michkov under 15 minutes time on ice. I think this is a very, very different player than anyone the Flyers have ever had. I promise you, they're going to give this guy every opportunity, and given his ADP, I'm more than happy to take him there. Macklin Celebrini was the youngest player in college hockey history to win the Hobey Baker Award after posting 64 points in 38 games with 32 goals, 32 assists, and 179 shots. Celebrini has shown at every single level he's played that he's everything you want in an elite number 1 center. If this list was based purely off of skill, he would be neck and neck with Michkov for number 1. I'm much more confident in Celebrini being given every single opportunity possible than I am with Michkov and Tortorella possibly holding him back. I anticipate that he's going to get the Bedard treatment last year, where he's going to get well over 19 minutes a night and power play 1 time and basically be played in every situation. He's honestly a very, very good two-way forward as well, so it's possible that he could see some penalty kill time, although I'm not sure I would just throw everything at him in year 1. He will get that Bedard treatment. He has the talent. He has the opportunity. But we know the Sharks are not going to be a good hockey team next year. So I thought about this, and then I asked myself, well, are they any worse than what Chicago was last year with Bedard in his rookie season? And if Celebrini is that talented, I'm not saying he's quite the caliber that Connor Bedard is, or has the goal scoring upside or the shot upside, but I think he can be an elite player in this league at very minimum. Celebrini can easily match the production we have listed for him here with 51 points, 18 goals, 33 assists, 170 shots. My only real concern with Celebrini is the fact that he'll be playing against top competition. But again, we've seen players like Connor Bedard do this, and I think Celebrini is in a special tier. Like I said, not quite that generational talent that Connor Bedard is, but he's shown at every single level, especially as being an underager, that he's just elite in every facet of the game. He was the youngest player in college hockey. I said this earlier, youngest player in college hockey history to win the Hobey Baker Award. So if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about Celebrini and his upside, I don't know what will. The Ducks recently acquired Cutter Gauthier in a trade for Jamie Drysdale, and Gauthier was the second high-scoring player in the NCAA last year with 38 goals, 27 assists, and 65 points in 41 games with 212 shots. Gauthier will have plenty of opportunity to play in the top 6, and will likely see one of 2 elite playmakers in Trevor Zegras, Leo Carlsson. You might even throw Troy Terry into that mix as well, alongside power play exposure to all 3 of those guys, plus Mason McTavish. I can see him putting together a similar season to our projection of 46 points with a slightly higher goal and shot total than what we have listed in front of you. I could see him in that 25 goal range and possibly even upwards of 200 shots. It's pretty rare that we see that again, because a lot of the times rookies aren't typically given a lot of opportunity, but he might even be able to eclipse that, because he can potentially attach himself to a breakout candidate next year in Mason McTavish or Leo Carlsson, or maybe even Trevor Zegras if he finds his game again. Regardless, Gauthier is going to be a lock for top 6 minutes and power play 1 time. I think he's in a really good spot. There isn't really anybody in front of him in the depth chart that would really scare him away from being on that line 1 left wing role. Mason McTavish has seen a lot of time on the wing recently, so again, it might be him, and then they might bump Gauthier back to the bottom six. These are all things that we'll be able to see in training camp and line combos and all that good stuff. So be sure that you're following us on Twitter at fantasy_puck. Once we get all this crucial information as to where people are playing, what power plays teams are running, all that good stuff, we'll be posting that all over our Twitter. So be sure to hit us up on Twitter as well as Instagram. We're posting a ton of new content there as well. Either way, Gauthier is in a really, really good spot given the talent that's surrounding him and the opportunity that's in front of him. Will Smith is an incredibly dynamic and crafty playmaker that led all NCAA skaters last year with 25 goals, 46 assists for 71 points in 41 games. He tied Jack Eichel for most points by an under 19 player in the entire 21st century. There is also a possibility that I think Will Smith could become dual eligible as a winger and is given the opportunity to play alongside Macklin Celebrini as his center. In which case, he will be in for a much more productive season than what we show here at 45 points in 78 games with 15 goals, 30 assists. If Smith doesn't play along Celebrini, I think you could argue that puts him in a more beneficial spot for fantasy, simply because he won't be up against teams' top competition every single night. He's still going to get that power play one time. He's still going to get a ton of minutes in the top six, and he's arguably just as skilled as Celebrini with less goal scoring and peripheral upside, in my opinion, just based off the type of player he is. He's more of a setup, dynamic skill guy, very similar to like a Tim Stutzla, for example, very good off of the rush. Regardless, he will have just as much opportunity as Celebrini. So I think Smith is in a really, really good spot for the foreseeable future. Rutger McGroarty could be a very sneaky play given the opportunity to play in the Penguins' top six and possibly with Sidney Crosby. McGroarty finished 9th in scoring in the NCAA with 16 goals and 36 assists with 136 shots. And over the course of his 75 games played in the last two seasons, he finished with 34 goals, 57 assists, and 254 shots. There's really only one other right winger in front of McGroarty that's stopping him from playing alongside Sid, and that's Brian Rust, a guy that's going to be 32 this year and has played less than 63 games twice in the last 3 seasons, so a bit of an injury concern there with Rust. I'm not saying, they're going to play him over him, but it's still possible that they might just play him on that top line. Losing Riley Smith and Jake Gensel, somebody's going to have to put the puck in the back of the net, and there's just so much opportunity for Rutger McGroarty in the top six, not only to mention the possibility of him potentially being on power play 1, and the best part is you can likely get him with the last pick of your draft. I really like him as a really good deep league target with a ton of upside. Finishing up our list is Dustin Wolf, who's statistically been the best goalie in the AHL for the last 3 seasons. Wolf was virtually unbeatable at the AHL level, posting over a .922 in his last 3 seasons, including a .932 save percentage in 22-23 with a 42-10-2 record across 55 starts. Last season in the NHL, Wolf was given some of Calgary's final games with Jacob Markstrom being traded at the deadline. The results were definitely underwhelming, finishing with a 7-7 record and a .89 save percentage. This doesn't shy me away from Wolf in any way, as he was probably a victim of the entire Flames team checking out after trading guys like Tanev and Markstrom. You just go into this little bit of a lull as you're out of the playoff spot and out of a wild card spot at that point. But this season, Wolf has some sneaky value due to the volume he could potentially get. He's shown previously in the AHL that he's able to handle a 50-plus game workload. Obviously, this isn't an NHL schedule, but I still think there's something to be said about a guy that can show that he can handle a high volume of games at any level. And who knows, maybe Calgary isn't as bad as anticipated. They are in the Pacific Division after all, so they could get you a couple more wins here and there. Regardless, the wins I don't think are going to be super high as reflected in our projection, but I can see the goals against average and the save percentage being better, and Wolf definitely has the talent to do so and has been an elite goalie at every level so far, and I expect him to be one in the NHL at some point. I've got some unlikely guys that are going to make the roster in Zeev Buium and Jesper Wallstedt. I think it's possible Buium actually makes the roster, as Minnesota it doesn't have as deep of a decor as normal, and I think if he does, he might be my favorite rookie to target, given the fact that he's almost going to be guaranteed on that power play 1 That's the entire reason why they trade up and draft him. He's an elite offensive defenseman. I think he will honestly push Brock Faber to power play 2. I don't see Faber repeating that if William is in the lineup on that top power play. I genuinely think he's an absolute slam dunk if he makes the team. Same goes for Jesper Wallstedt. I know there's 2 goalies blocking him right now in Gustafsson and Fleury, but again, I don't trust Gustafsson just yet after the season that he had. It's possible, although unlikely, that Wallstedt does end up staying with the team and they run 3 goalies. I don't know where I'm at with Wallstedt yet. I would feel so much more confident in taking him if there wasn't one of the 2 goalies in front of him. I love the guy. I think he's going to be an elite goaltender in this league going forward. And then some players that are really likely going to be making their lineup. I'm kind of on the fence about Bradley Nadeau after looking at Carolina's roster. They do have a 13-man team with some NHL vets kind of deeper in their lineup, albeit on that fringe level of NHL, AHL. So if they decide to go with a speedy skill guy like Bradley Nadeau, it's possible that he could play top 6 minutes. But again, this is why he's listed on the watch list right now. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Maxim Tisplikov. Islanders decided to sign him, and it's possible that he does play a top 6 role with them. I don't know too much about him outside of that. I looked, like I said, at his KHL numbers, and nothing really stood out to me outside of that 31-goal season that he had last year. But again, with a very inflated shooting percentage, I would recommend checking him out if you're interested in drafting him. For me, again, he's a little bit more deep league kind of target with some upside potentially if he plays in that top 6. But again, we need to know where he's actually playing in the lineup before I make that effort in drafting him. And then Yaroslav Askarov, I think, is in a very similar spot to Dustin Wolf. The only reason why I didn't include Askarov on this list is because, again, he is on the San Jose Sharks, who are going to be one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League next year. And I think Wolf probably provides a little bit more value simply because he's on Calgary. That being said, they're very on par with being the same quality caliber of goaltender. And so if you want to take a chance on Askarov, I wouldn't blame you at all. I wouldn't do it in leagues that count wins. Let's just say that. That's my only concern with him going forward. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below if I missed a rookie that you think you're really high on this year. Love to hear your guys' thoughts and takes. And as always, love to hear what you think of the players that I selected in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.